Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this final session here in Carrick-on-Shannon for today, at today's session of BioFarm National Conference, which of course is going on and streaming live from lovely Leitrim all this week. Our final speaker this evening comes to us live from the very centre of Missouri. His name is Greg Judy, who with his wife Jan raise cattle, sheep, mushrooms, pigs and chickens on nothing less than 1,620 acres in Rooker in Missouri. Their livestock graze rich pasture while building healthy soils. And Greg has written a book and he is in great demand, and he's going to talk to us now about mob grazing and regenerative farming and how it all works. Take it away, Greg.
All right, well, thank you. Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing here in central Missouri. And, we are focused on being solar energy harvesters. So what we do is we try and manipulate every blade of grass as many days of the year as possible to catch as much solar energy. Because if you think about it, the animal, that is what they're doing. They're taking a worthless product that humans, we can eat grass until we fall over and die. We can't convert that to a valuable protein. But here's an animal, this ruminant, they can do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got started, some of the tools that we use and what we stay focused on. And basically what we've got here, folks, is we've got adapted animals. You're going to hear me talk a little bit about that today too. I think, you can do a really good job with your pastures and your soils, but if you don't have animals that are adapted to your environment, you're kind of you're swimming upstream, so to speak. And so what we look for is animals that are the right weight range, and we've developed that over time. So we like to call ourselves, we're not exactly grass farmers, we are microbe farmers. And so if we feed the microbes in the soil, the microbes will end up feeding our livestock courteous, healthy soil, healthy forages, healthy animals, and in the end run, healthy food for our community and our families. And that's what we're all about. There's the blade of grass. That blade of grass is about 3.5 foot long. That was grown with sunlight and animals trampling that carbon you see behind that young man. All of that was trampled on the ground. And so we're forming this tremendous sponge, and it's the carbon, it's the animals, it's a good rest period. So you can trample that much carbon on the land, and then we don't come back until we have a point on the tip of that grass. So you think about that. If your whole farm's covered with grass blades that are capturing that much energy, you've got a really good advantage. And that's the only advantage we have is grass and clovers and stuff that's grown with sunlight, because everything else, you got to buy it. Energy is the hardest thing there is to get on the farm. And if you have to purchase it, it's also the most expensive. So you can't stay in business going out here purchasing energy. You got to grow it on the land. And we like to see, the legumes and the grasses. It used to be we didn't have forages that looked like this, but when we changed our grazing mindset, folks, it takes grass to grow grass. And you're going to hear me say that quite often. Everybody says, well, Greg, I want to do what you're doing, but you go to their farm and they're overgrazing it. They're taking too much of the sward. Okay. And so what we're doing is we're staying focused on leaving some grass behind with each grazing pass so that we can collect this energy from the sunlight. And what we have found is if we'll leave a taller residual, it has a larger solar collector. And guess what? The animals are taking just the tips of those plants and converting it into a very, very edible diet. You see, folks, the energy, the top part of the plant, that's where the animals like to eat. That's where the energy is the highest. And also, by focusing on the upper sward of your plant, you're not allowing the animals to ingest parasites. The parasites are living on the first 1 to 3 inches of your grass sward, down in the canopy where the sunlight can't get them. Okay, so don't let your animals eat the grass off short, and that's why we don't have to worm. We haven't ever wormed our cows ever. We don't worm the calves. Nothing gets wormed. And that's because we're not making them eat wormy grass. So let's fast forward. There's a winter scene. The whole mob is being strip grazed there on winter stockpile. And you'll hear people talk about fescue this and fescue that. And we really do like fescue. It is the backbone of our farm. We also have orchard grass, or I think in your country you call it cocksfoot. We have bluegrass. There's timothy, just a whole sword of different grasses. But in the winter, that's what really turns it around. It'll stay green all winter long, the fescue will. So that is a huge advantage. This is a typical scene. This is a new farm, one of the farms that we lease, and we do have 16 farms. We lease 12 of those, and we now own 4 of them. But folks, this is a story. In 1999, I leased my first farm. At that time, I was going broke. I had one farm. I was doing everything conventional, what everybody told me to do. I had big cattle. I was shooting for those great big weaning weights on the calves. Feed them, feed them, feed them, feed them all this grain, feed them all these licks, doctor them. Make sure you put the antibiotics on, all this stuff, pouring them with Ivomec, you name it. And at the end of the year, I was going broke. And so I had to change or quit. And that's what forced me down this path, was either do something different. And the definition of insanity is to do the same thing every year and expect a different result. And I realized I couldn't do that. So this is a lease farm. This one's about 3 years old now. And that's what we're doing. We're taking a very damaged landscape. So this landscape would have had eastern red cedar, a lot of moss on it, and broom sedge. And today it's just a beautiful sward of grass, compliments of those cows. And they're trampling that carbon on the land. And they're also, by taking the tips of those plants, they're sloughing off some roots with every grazing pass. This is again, a picture on top of ours. That's the neighbor below us. Folks, you can't treat your animals like that on the bottom and expect them not to get wormy and sick. And, the animals that get all that mud froze on them, that's not good. Our animals don't ever have any mud froze on them. And so their hair stays dry in the wintertime. And that's a grass-fed animal right there. And people say, but Greg, you fed that animal grain. No, we didn't. That's 100% grass. But again, it's genetics. It's genetics. We like to see an animal that has a shorter leg. We tell people, if you can open up a newspaper and shove it underneath the belly of that animal and read it, you've got way too much leg on your animals. That's a bull. They should look like bulls. Now that bull is a 2-frame. So he's only about 48 inches tall, but he must be 3 foot wide. I mean, that's how you make money in the grazing business. So we like to call them our microbe feeders. So we have these animals. Our mob of cows are moved twice a day, 365 days of the year. Even if there's snow on the ground, I don't care. They're being moved every single day. And that's why the health on these animals is just through the roof. Our animals just don't get sick. So if you think about this, there's more animal weight in pounds per acre below the soil than there is above the soil in healthy pastures. So you got to realize that every time you create bare soil on your farm, that's like ripping Mother Nature's skin off of the surface of her body. She can't stand it. She can't stand it. She's going to put a weed there. Folks, you got to keep your soil covered. And healthy soil has got to be covered. If it's not covered, that's not soil. You know what they call that? Dirt. It's lifeless. There's no life in dirt. Now this is something that we've changed. This is another lease farm that we got about 5 years ago. This farm went 50 years without livestock. And you can see that dead thatch in the background. First year, that's the picture I took. Those animals, I turned them in on that. Normally, I would have thrown a match on that. I would have burned it. I'd have burned all that thatch off because that was what we were taught to do. Burn that, get rid of it, and then go in and seed it. Well, folks, that's carbon out there. And if I'd have thrown a match on that, all that would have ended up in the atmosphere. We don't need it. This way, I brought the animals in. I trampled all that beautiful carbon on the ground. And that farm absolutely exploded with beautiful, beautiful forages. So, soil building recipe: add a mob of ruminant animals, start trampling carbon on the surface, then follow that by a full recovery period. Rest. Rest is one of the most powerful tools you have in your grazer's toolbox. You must learn to use rest. Don't graze the roots. I see that all over, everywhere I go. It's unbelievable. People feel like if they don't graze it all off, they're wasting it. You're not wasting it. You've got to keep the ground covered. You got to keep that plant in a growing state. And you take it down to 1 or 2 inches, it's not in a growing state anymore. It's in a survival state. You took the roots off. We're not going to graze the roots off our farm. No way. So this is day one. This would be a typical paddock. Now this is a paddock that got away from us. What I mean by that is in the springtime, the grass was growing so fast that I couldn't keep up with it. And so I just left this farm off. And I came back to it about 2 months later and we did this. Put the wire up, trampled it on the ground. That's our litter. And then it looked like this a month later. So all that dead stuff that is trampled now on the ground is all coming back with this beautiful clover. I've got a really nice litter bank there. Any droplet of water that falls on that farm, it doesn't run onto my neighbor. And I'll say that. Learn to keep your water. Don't share it with your neighbor. If it falls on your land, keep it. Don't let him have it. He's got his own water. He doesn't need yours. And there's the casting. So that's earthworm casting right there in the middle, that big glob. That's all made by one earthworm eating that dead litter that the cattle, complements of the cattle mob, trampled on the ground. And that's like gold. It's better than gold because that casting right there is going to grow you a ton of grass. And the pH of that earthworm castings there is 7. Okay, it's perfect. Winter grazing. So the neighbors are all out feeding hay. We're doing that. We're putting that wire up, that wire in front of those animals there. That's our predator. Okay. And if you have, you can see it right there. That's the predator. That's keeping them from moving forward where you don't want them. So if you strip graze them, they don't waste it as much. They're not stepping on as much of it. And you can actually use a lot more of this feed. And I'm going to show some winter grazing pictures here in a minute. Because I know that's one of the most challenging times, especially I was told, in Ireland, you all have the wet winters and it can get pretty puggy. And, that's 80% of the cost of keeping your animals. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So there's a late winter, that would be February. There's still snow on the ground. But you notice where the stockpile is taller, it's already melted the snow off. So when you have short grass, it doesn't melt snow. Tall grass gathers heat and takes the snow off. That's our insurance. We call that our insurance. So we buy purchased hay. We'll purchase it in the summertime. And we don't take a tractor, we don't use a truck out on our pastures. We use that. That's an ATV, and that's the bale mower that I made, and we now sell those at our farm. And there it is. There's a little truck that we're actually unrolling some, but we don't take big trucks out. And so the cattle go out and they graze it in windrows in the snow, and it looks like that when we get done. Okay. So all that manure, all that urine is all deposited out on the pastures where it'll grow more grass. Okay. We do get some snow in Missouri. I don't know if y'all get snow that looks like that, but that's a pretty good snow. And so there we are. So what I do when we get really deep snow, I still roll out the hay. And we'll make a windrow down through those fields and just unroll hay in the windrow. And the cows go down the windrows eating the hay. So by moving them all the time, we're not tearing up our farm. There's another side view of it. And the sheep do exactly the same thing. They're coming down this windrow, and by moving the snow, now see that snow is 2 foot deep. And by removing that snow, the sheep are able to graze the stockpile just fine. And we get ice. There's some ice. So you got ice froze. That's a very challenging time for us because the cattle, when they walk on that, they actually bust the forage down onto the ground and it doesn't come back up. So in an ice storm like that, we will unroll some hay and wait for the sun to come up. Once the ice is melted off, we go back to grazing again in the wintertime. Here's some open savanna. So we've got trees and forages together. The animals have created a lot of that on our farm. We like trees. We like to have the shade. We like to have the shelter for them in the wintertime. And then also the trees are really good about making the forage that grows under a tree has a lower lignin value. Okay, so it's partial shade, so that tree is actually raising the value of the forage that grows underneath it. Okay, lignin, animals can't digest it. So full sunlight, you got higher lignin. Partial shade, you got less lignin. So here we are bruising the soil. We got our mob of animals out there. Very good gut feel on those animals, very healthy, being moved twice a day. And their hooves. See, the ruminant animal, when they walk on this land and they've got a lot of forage out there to walk on, they're actually bruising the soil, waking up the microbes. And the microbes are all eating each other. Folks, it's a war under there. Everybody's eating each other and creating healthy soil. This is a riparian zone. A lot of people fence off riparian zones. We don't. We graze them with high intensity for a short period and then we're gone. And you can look at that picture. I don't care how, what you feel like. That's a healthy landscape right there. The animals have done that. We leased that farm 20 years ago. That was all bare dirt, but it was continuously grazed. So the same animal that destroyed that farm is now being used to heal it. Heal it. And it's called high density, short duration grazing. It's a wonderful tool. Water. We believe in quality water. You've got to give your animals good water. Don't make them drink water that you wouldn't drink. I mean, if it's really dirty, it's got a lot of bacteria in it, you can expect to have health issues with your animals because the animals are 75% water. We're starting to see a lot of other grasses come in. We haven't seeded any of these. This is what really gets me charged up. This is a gamma grass plant. So it's called Eastern gamma grass. Gamma grass covered Missouri back in the pre-settler days. Missouri was covered with it. This is what the buffalo ate. And now we've got it reappearing on our farms. Complements of good rest periods, beating that litter bank down and getting off of it. Folks, if you don't give it a good enough rest period, recovery, you're never going to see grasses like this appear. They don't have time. There's another one. There's big blue stem. That's a native warm season grass. Beautiful grasses. We've done a little bit with cover crops. That's what that was. That was a cover crop that we drilled right into our pastures. And that's how it did with no rain. That gives you an idea of the fertility that we've built in our soil. And we didn't put any fertilizer down. That was drilled right into Kentucky 31 fescue in July. The dung beetles, we're starting to see those reappear, and I'm excited about that. We didn't have any dung beetles, but we don't pour Ivomec down the back of our cows. Everybody's pouring Ivomec on them to get the worms out, and it kills your dung beetle population. Stop doing that. If you think about your farm, it's got thousands of these holes all over the farm. That's tremendous percolation for water. Good rumen function. Learn to read your manure pads. You like to see the dimple in the middle. If you don't have that nice little pond in the middle, your manure pads have probably got too much protein. You're making the animals eat the plants down too short. Okay? If they got a manure pad like that, you're getting really good rumen function. Healthy soil, healthy animals. We do grass finished beef. There's a steer that's getting close. He's not there yet. There's some a little bit closer. You can see the fat on the tail head. I like to have 3 to 4 wrinkles showing in that tail head, right in that area right there. If you got the 3 wrinkles, they're getting real close to being ready to process. We like to use unfair advantages. Sheep is one of those. You can get 3 triplets, twins. You sure can't do that with cattle. Here we are taking them down the road. We don't haul our animals anywhere. We walk them. So we've got these farms. We can walk them down these gravel roads to the next farm, and it works really well. So carbon, we got to feed the soil, folks. Good grazing management, trampling the carbon, and we like to use the phrase, every grass blade that is trampled gives you two back. So that's a pretty good payoff, if you can just think about that a minute. Learn to take a spade out onto your farm. How many of y'all dig in your farm soil? Bring a spade with you, dig down and look at your soil. It should look like that. That is just going to catch water. That's what that's going to do. You pour water on that, it's not running off. It's got all these nice little, all this beautiful structure in there. It's just like a big sponge. Okay. We keep it simple. We keep one herd as much of the year as possible. What we mean by that is multiple herds kill your recovery periods. So if you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 herds stocked on your farm and you're moving them every day, let's just say you got 2 herds, you're going to get around your farm twice as fast. If you've got 1 herd, now you've got control of your farm. Increase your stocking density, put them in there tighter and move them more frequently. It just gets better every year. Okay. Biggest profit robber is hay. We've learned to do winter stockpiling, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Where's the money going if we do this? We ask this question all the time. And a good example, people say, oh, you got to spray your farm. You got to spray your weeds. You got to spray that Kentucky 31. You got to kill everything. No, you don't. And you don't need to seed anything. There's tons of seed in the seed bank. So we just feel like we're not going to spend money on anything unless it eats grass, period. That's our budget. So it's cheaper than free. So there's an animal that's grown from the time it was a calf, dropped out on the ground, it finished on our farm, and then we sell that to a customer. That's all grass finished beef. There's no grain in that animal. It's just all grass and clover. So we got to give plants a head start. Let's start right there. So in the springtime, I know winter is behind us now. You've been feeding hay all winter, maybe, or half the winter, whatever, and you're tired of it. And you see grass blades starting to come up in the springtime. And you go out there and you turn your animals out too soon, and they chew off your plants. Well, you think about it, you just lopped the baby plant's head off. And now you've got your whole farm is covered with this immature spring plants. They're low energy, high protein, and your animal performance is not going to be good. And neither is your plant performance. So here's a picture. This is a fall stockpile from the previous fall that we haven't grazed yet. So you see that brown grass out there with all that green? That's like having a little bit of dry hay out there. So this is springtime. You can tell the leaves aren't out yet. They're just starting to come out. When the animal reaches out and grabs a big tongue full of that and rips it off, he's getting a little dry matter. And that's just perfect. That's what you want. So we're going to focus on investing our money into an animal that eats grass, gives a baby every year while building soil. It's doing a lot of things for us, okay? How much forage do you leave? Well, we leave enough forage to let it grow back quickly. So we're only taking the top third of the plant. We talked about that a little earlier, okay? Take the top third. Learn to use small, if you can, get a little bit smaller frame animals. If your animals are in that, here in the United States, everybody's pushing, 14, 15, 1,600 pound cows. You got to get them big, boys. You got to get them big. I'm sorry, but you're putting a lot of people out of the grazing business and a lot of people out of the cattle business. There's no money to be made in huge cows because they eat too much in the wintertime. It takes too much to maintain the groceries just to get their body condition from going backwards. You don't want to do that. So how often do we move the herd? Well, the grazing rule is with fast growth, we move them fast. Slow growth, we slow them down. So the livestock moves must be compatible with your labor. So if you work in town, you got a town job, you got to make those moves where they mix in good with your town job. Monitoring, observe your grazing behavior. Watch that gut fill. We don't want any death triangle. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Watch your livestock drink. If they're licking at the water, you probably got bacteria in your water. You need to fix that. They shouldn't be doing that. They need to put their head in that water and drink, not be looking at it. There's the neighbor. So the neighbor on the right is doing continuous grazing, and they have 20 head of cows on there. It's 100 acres, or I'm sorry, 20 head of horses. On the left side is 365 head of cattle, and they're being moved twice a day. Can y'all see a difference there? Where do you think her water's going? The lady on the right, where's our water going? We're keeping our water and we're keeping our soil. Her soil is actually moving off of this farm. That's how short that grass is. There you go. Look at that. Folks, if I get a rain tonight, a 2-inch rain, and my pastures look like that, where do you think that rain's going to go? We're going to keep it. We're going to grow more grass. This is overgrazing, not mob grazing. So on the left side of that wire, this is early. That was my first year of playing with it. I thought I was doing good. I wasn't doing good. So burn this picture into your mind. Those cows risk shocking their neck, reaching under that poly wire right there to get another bite. You shouldn't look like you took a lawnmower and mowed the other side of that paddock, where they weren't. Now I just turned them onto there, but those cows were not getting enough to eat. Don't do that. So we changed our grazing methods. In 2006, we were just doing a rotational graze. Now we're doing holistic high density grazing, more animal impact, more litter bank, more grass volume, quality. We're seeing more diversity now. Folks, when you get the animals tighter and beat the land up with their feet a little bit, and I'm not talking about making it a feedlot, just trampling it, you're going to see a lot more plant diversity. And in the end, more profit. What has worked for thousands of years? We're just duplicating nature. So one species supports 8. So diversity, think about diversity. Bare soil, 90% evaporation rate. It also sheds all rainwater. There's some bare soil that was on my neighbor's farm across the road from me. Where do you think his water is going? It's down in that crack. He's not growing any grass. He had to sell all of his cows. Same right across the fence. There's ours, green grass. It's holding water. I mean, look at that. It's just beautiful. Soil fact: 1 billion microbes in 1 teaspoon of healthy soil. We're talked about not burning. We don't want to kill microbial life. So burning promotes litter, and also burning promotes plant spacing. Grazing promotes plant density. It brings the plants closer together. So stop doing that. Need taller plants? You got to have the density high enough to trample the litter. This is some of our silvopasture that we're developing. We're getting TSI, which is timber stand improvement. So we're getting some lumber, shiitake logs, firewood, and then we end up with a savanna. So there's the animals in the wintertime. We unroll some hay in those areas. There's our mushroom logs. So we've taken a resource that we would have burned in a wood stove to heat with. Now we're growing food on that. There's a quote: "Nothing in nature is given. It is won." That's a quote that's in a major agriculture building in the U.S. That's what we're teaching our kids today going to school. In other words, you got to beat the heck out of nature or she's going to kick your butt. No. If you learn to work with nature, we both win. We both win. Okay? Define what is important. What quality of life do you want? The decisions need to be measured against your quality of life statement. And will it increase or will it decrease your quality of life? And I want to cover that a little bit because I see a lot of people out here jumping in and doing things just because they need to be busy doing something. Make sure if you're going to do something that at least it's economical and you're going to get paid back for it. It's better to do nothing and make nothing than to do something and make nothing. Okay? And remember that. That is our website, greenpasturesfarm.net, and you can go there, and a lot of our stuff that we're doing on the farm is posted there. And on closing from that, I just wanted to also say the whole reason behind this venture that we're on is we're trying to heal communities, we're trying to heal soils, And I think there's a lot of people out here, folks, that are interested in doing exactly what we're doing. And I see it every day. We've got our own YouTube channel now, and I think we're up to 50,000 subscribers. And I'm telling you, there's people hungry. There's people hungry to do this. And so my hat's off to you all in Ireland. You're doing this conference. I think it's awesome that you're trying to get other people on the go here to get people excited about this and to teach.
There's another subscriber, Greg.
Yes, I know. I had my phone shut off earlier, then I had to plug it back in. We had that technical difficulty. I forgot to unplug it. So yeah.
So, quick couple of questions for you. What is your stocking rate? Because obviously that system is great if you have a big expanse of land and you keep your stock numbers controlled to the extent that you can leave a long period of recovery before that stock is back in on that same patch of land.
Yeah, so the stocking rate, the county average stocking rate here in Missouri is around 4 acres per annum unit for a year. We're stocked at about 1.8. So it's 1.8 acres per animal unit. Now, an animal unit is 1,000 pounds of meat. I don't care if it's 7 sheep that weigh 130 pounds or if it's 1 cow that weighs 1,000 pounds. It's 1,000 pounds as an AU. Okay. So we're at 1.8 acres per year.
And
so we've doubled it. We've doubled the county average. Yeah.
And do you reckon that there's any scope for increasing that any further? The reason I ask is because, a kind of a typical benchmark in Ireland would be 1 acre or maybe just over an acre per livestock unit. So is there a scope, and of course land is more limited in Ireland with smaller farms, smaller fields. So, if you're working a farm of 50 acres or maybe 100 acres and you can only run 50 livestock units on that 100 acres, your meat need to be worth an awful lot of money before you can make a living out of it.
Yes. Well, the whole stocking rate thing it's better, I think, starting out to be a little bit understocked than overstocked. Because if you graze your farm off where it looks like a pool table, because you've got to be at 1 animal per acre, you're not doing anything there. You're not building soil carbon. You're losing soil because when it rains, it's leaving your farm. You're not capturing the rainwater and holding it on your farm. And so when it gets dry, your land suffers. Now in Ireland, maybe you don't ever get dry. I don't know. I think excess moisture may be more of an issue there than being dry. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah.
So, but folks, in the wintertime, we graze around our entire farms twice. So the first pass around our farms in the winter, we're giving them a slightly bigger area so that when we come back again in 30 to 45 days, it's been rained on, it's had some cool weather hit it, and you know what? Those cows go back out there and it's just like you gave them a fresh paddock. But it's because we start with a massive sward of grass in the fall. Now, we don't grow all winter long like you do. I understood yesterday that one of your guys was saying that you grow slow in the winter, but your grass never stops growing. Well, in Missouri, we do stop growing. And so we'll graze our plants down to about 2 inches in the wintertime. That's about as low as we will. Our neighbors will take them down to 1/2 inch. So the lower you graze that plant in the wintertime or in the non-growing season, the slower it's going to be to take off in the spring. You've weakened your whole grass stand.
You talked about grazing your riparian zones very intensively for a short period. And yet I'm thinking that kind of mob grazing system that you use is pretty much, you're moving your stock every day. So presumably anywhere they're grazing, it's pretty intensive and short. So how much more intensive or how much more short or is it when you're grazing your riparian zones?
Well, they're only there for 8 to 12 hours. Okay. And when they got there, the grass was 12 inches tall. We only took 4 inches of it. Okay. So we left When we leave those areas, we're leaving 6 to 8 inches, still holding those banks together. The longer you can leave your grass soil, the quicker it grows back. And that's hard for people to get over because they think they're wasting the grass if they don't take it all. You're not wasting it.
Your grass has gone so long that there'll be a certain line of thought that it's gone to seed, it's high in lignin, it's less digestible. You refer to lignin there. Would your animals be able to digest more of what you're growing if you were grazing it younger?
Well, right now, what we are focusing on is keeping it more in a vegetative state. And so by taking the top 3 inches of your plant, we're going around our farms very fast. I mean, we've grazed our farms this year. I think we're on our 7th pass now, 7 times around our entire farms. I mean, we're cranking. We're giving them bigger areas and moving them quickly. And so by doing that, the animals are getting the very best. Our animals are so beautifully conditioned they can hardly walk. But guess what? We got winter staring at us, 30 below zero. We need an animal that can put on some fat. So in the wintertime, and that's the other thing I didn't mention, we don't wean. We don't wean our calves. We make the cow wean them. And so that cow's giving that calf just a little bit of milk through the wintertime. And so we don't have to take the calf off and feed it any kind of supplement or anything. That calf is getting a cup full of milk every day. And they just fly through the wintertime.
And so when that calf reaches a year old, presumably the cow is ready to calve again. The calf is taken off her then?
Yeah.
She's removed to a separate
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's a cow do when they calve? They leave the herd. They go over to the corner and they calve. And usually a month or two before that, our cows have already weaned the calf off.
Okay.
The cows that don't wean a calf, they won't wean them off. They let them keep sucking. We get rid of those cows.
Okay. And so
we've been
the year-old calf is still running with the same mob, the same herd.
Absolutely.
So its mum is over there with her younger brother or sister or whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's a little different. We do things different here.
And so what age are your stock then when they're getting killed? And do you get a premium then because they are 100% grass-fed?
Absolutely. Yeah, we get a premium. We don't sell anything at the sale barn. Well, to give you an example, our primary market right now, because of you saw those cattle, they're pretty good looking cows. They're grass genetic. We've worked on our frame size. We've got them down to where everybody's beating our door down. Everybody wants our genetics, and so that is our biggest profit center now, is selling grass-fed heifers, grass-fed bulls, and grass-fed steers. And so we'll, like right now, you can go to the sale barn right now and buy a bull to put in your herd. Oh, you'll give, let's say $1,500 for that bull. Our bulls are $4,000.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a pretty good premium. And you know what? We can't raise enough of them. We can't raise enough.
Very little of your stock is actually going for processing for meat now. It's nearly all going for breeding.
No, we'll sell around 50 steers a year. Not all those male calves are going to be bulls. I'm the predator in my herd, so I pick out the ones that get to be bulls. And by doing that, the linear measuring, looking at the testicle size, the hair coat, they need to have a crest on their neck. They've got to be docile. We're not going to sell a bull that's nasty. No way. I'm not going to do that. And they've got to do it 100% on grass. Okay? They've got to have a big gut. A bull needs a big gut. They got to have small leg bones on them. You don't want a great big bone on your bull. You got to have a smaller leg bone.
And so what kind of a premium are you getting for the meat then, Greg?
On the meat, it depends how much you buy. If you buy quarters, halves, or wholes, the more you buy, the cheaper it is. But somewhere, right now, whatever the top price is at the sale barn, we're getting about 25% over that. And that's if you buy a whole animal. And guess what? We don't have a sales commission. There's no shrink. There's no trucking. Nothing. They come and buy them at our farm. And so this last year, I actually added my steers to another fellow, and we sold a pot load, which is 50,000 pounds. And we got a really good price. We sold them to another grass finisher. So you got to think about it. How can you get the most money from your grass? I just told you what I got for the bulls.
Yeah.
Our heifers are $3,500.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want a cow in your herd that'll give you a $3,500 heifer calf, or do you want to raise a steer out of her and keep that steer?
You're making so much money from farming, you'll be able to retire next week.
I'm telling you, it's all about capturing energy in the grass. That's what it's about, and marketing.
Yeah.
You got to market it.
Okay,
Nobody else is going to market it.
We've got questions flowing in here for you. Do you mix your cows and sheep in one herd in your rotations, or are they on separate farms?
Yeah, so the bulls are left into this is going to throw you for a loop too. The bulls are left in the herd from July. We put them in July 1st. The bulls don't come out till March 1st. Okay, so we don't have a 90-day calving season.
Yeah.
We don't care because we're selling bulls all year long. So the reason we do that, sir, is we've got 55, 60 bulls out there right now in the herd. I don't want another herd of bulls to winter. No way. Put them in the cow mob. The bigger mob of animals that you can keep together the most days of the year, the more money you will make. You know why?
Simpler?
You have a bigger horsepower engine. You've got more animals. Ian, my friend in Africa, he's got 4,000 cows in one herd. Mm-hmm. I can never duplicate what he does. I mean, you're putting down a lot of manure, a lot of urine, you're trampling a lot of litter on the ground, and by having one herd, you also have a longer recovery period. So the bulls come out March 1st. They go into the sheep. Okay. And we'll put 50 bulls. Well, this last year we had 79. We had 79 bulls in with our sheep flock. And when the sheep start lambing, we take the bulls out for about 3 weeks. Okay. And that's because we can't keep the sheep moving at this pace that we need to move them with the bulls.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This is a question that's probably gone over my head, but it'll probably make sense to you. This is from Bernard. How would you compare holistic high-density grazing to the ultra-high-density grazing as outlined by Johann Zeitzman?
Ultra-high stock density grazing, that's fine if you live in an area where you get rainfall. There's a guy here in the United States, him and Johan put conferences together, and he calls it take it all grazing. But one little blip that he leaves out, he's got 7 irrigators on that ranch. So he can take it down to the dirt, and the minute the cows move off, he's putting down 2 to 3 inches of rain on it. He's got a 65,000 acre lake. He can irrigate. If you take it all here in central Missouri, you will be out of business in about a year. Okay. Because you don't know when it's going to rain. You don't know when it's going to rain again. And so this ultra high stock density grazing, be careful with that. You will get hurt. You will get hurt. Be careful.
Okay. Arthur Preston says, grass growth in Ireland never stops, but in winter it slows down to around 10 kilos of dry matter per hectare. I don't know if those numbers mean anything to you. Is there less risk of overgrazing by taking the quote-unquote second bite in the winter, since the grass is growing less and therefore calling on less energy from the roots? That's slightly complicated. Could you follow me?
Yeah, I follow you on that. So just say you take the first pass around in the wintertime, and it comes back to your stocking rate. The answer to that question, if you've got too many animals down there and you've got to come back around and take too much of that sward on your second pass, you're probably overstocked. And I understand what you're saying. There's not a lot of land in Ireland, so you've got to have it stocked maximum to have any chance at making it, correct?
Okay.
So it's kind of it's a catch-22 right there.
Sure.
If you got too many animals, you're going to overgraze your land in the wintertime. you're going to take too much.
His second question from the same man, would you prioritize long rotation length or high post-grazing residuals in a situation where winter stocking rates are close to maximum? Yes, it does sound like he's overstocked.
Yes. I mean, we're at 370 head right now. Our grass is not growing, and we're on our first rotation around our farms right now. So what we do, because we know we're a little bit overstocked, we didn't get the rain this fall, but we still got a lot of stockpile. We're taking one grazing all the way around the farm, but we're giving them watch what you leave. Make sure you can leave around 60-70% of it on that first grazing pass. And the way you do that, give them a little bit bigger area, and we unroll a bale of hay out there. So we can buy, to give you an example, we can buy a 1,200 pound net wrap bale for $30, okay? We unroll that bale out there, and those cows get a little bit of that dry matter with their winter stockpile, and it takes the pressure off of that sward of grass that we gave them.
Stretch it out a bit.
So the next rotation around, there's another feeding there waiting for them.
Okay. James asks, what strategy would you take for dairy cows, given that they need a higher plane of nutrition?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's people that use this in dairy. On dairy cows, if you make a mistake on dairy cows, you will find out that night when you go to look in your milker, it's only half full. You limited those animals. With beef cattle, we don't find it out until we preg test. And then half your cows didn't breed. Why didn't they breed? It's because you didn't give them enough to eat. So watch the death triangle. On dairy cows, it's even tougher to see, but it's on the left side of the animal. If you're setting on the animal, look on the left side. If you've got an indention on that dairy animal, a large indention, she's not getting enough forage, and she's not going to milk well. She's probably not going to breed. And that's the biggest cost. That's one of the largest costs, is a cow that doesn't breed back.
Okay. But your point is that your system is still applicable in dairying if you are so inclined.
If you got to watch animal performance. You got to watch to make sure that they're getting enough to eat every single day.
Okay. 3 more quickies. This is from Anonymous. What's your favorite breed for grazing? And it sounds like you have a kind of a hybrid breed there. You've kind of a composite breed you've come up with yourself?
Yeah, I'm very biased, you know. It's South Pole. South Pole's the best breed. They're good for heat, humidity, and fescue. That's what they are developed for. They can eat Kentucky 31 fescue, which everybody curses. They hate Kentucky 31 because it's got the endophyte toxin in it. But I think you all can grow fescue in Ireland. I don't know why you can't. Yeah. I would definitely make sure I had some fescue in my pastures if I lived in Ireland, because it stays green all winter long and just keeps on cranking. And the beautiful thing about fescue, it'll hold your cows up when it gets puggy out. It's got a really strong root system underneath it. If you're tearing your pastures up in Ireland, look at the weight of your cows. What's the weight on? Can you give me that answer? What's the weight on your beef cows in Ireland?
Typical beef cow is going to be probably 600-700, maybe even 800, 600-700 kilos. So you're probably talking 1,500 pounds in your money.
Okay, so to me that's excessive, but
beefy enough.
Yeah, that's big enough. I mean, that's too big to me. But the packers here in the United States say they got to get them bigger. Yeah. And I asked him one. I said, "How big do we got to get them?" He said, "The size of an elephant." That'd be perfect.
All right. They better keep going to Africa. Do cattle get white eye from the grass being so high? I guess that's an infection in the eye, is it?
White eye or pearl eye.
Pearl eye, white eye. You never seen that?
No. I've never heard of that ever.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And the last one for you. Do you apply any lime?
We do. Occasionally, about every 15 to 20 years, we take soil tests. If our pH is dropped down in the mid 5s, the low 5s, we'll put a little pH. Okay. We'll put a little lime down.
Every 15 to 20 years.
The earthworm, they're doing a lot of liming for us.
Yeah, okay. You don't have many limings left in your lifetime, do you? At that rate.
Oh, I don't. I don't. I might have done my last one.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Listen, Greg, a real pleasure talking to you, and thanks so much for your patience, bearing with us, and bringing us that wonderful insight into your business. So that is it for this evening. We've had a great run of questions. It probably just falls to Sean, maybe just to say a few words before we sign off.
Great, thanks, Dara. First of all, Greg, I would like to say thanks. Absolutely brilliant presentation, and we've always talked, myself and a few others, about the idea of having you over. So when COVID goes away, hopefully we might see you in the next few years in Ireland on some farms to give you a better understanding of where we are, you know. So that's great. Thanks very much.
You bet.
And to everybody else, apologies for the issues all during the day. We're slowly working through it. Anybody that has missed Greg's, we're going to run it again anyway, I think on Friday, and everything will be pre-recorded that you will have for next week. So thanks again, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you.
And safe home. Oh wait, you are at home.
Yeah.